Donc bonjour tout le monde. Alors j'ai préparé ma présentation en anglais, donc j'espère que ça va pas vous déranger, mais je prendrai des questions en français si vous en avez. So I'm Sylvanne Daniels, and I'm the coordinator of the Quebec Network on Suicide, Mood Disorders, and Related Disorders. Notre nom français donc, est le Réseau québécois sur le suicide, les troubles de l'humeur et les troubles associés. So this is where we get our acronym, RQSHA. And so today I just would like to present our network to you and to show you how we strive to foster some new collaborations in suicide, mood disorders, and substance misuse. So the RQSHA was founded in 2009 as the Quebec Network on Suicide, and it was really established to address some of Quebec's high rates of suicides, and also to support Quebec's budding research culture on suicide. And then in 2013, when our network was renewed, we expanded our scope to include mood disorders and what we called related disorders. So these are essentially what was seen as being the key comorbidities of suicide. And so essentially here we're talking about substance disorders and personality disorders. Okay, so our mission is really to promote the development of suicide research, so research in Quebec that's really targeting the prevention of suicide. And this is really a large mandate, and as such has attracted a large number of members. So we have over 350 members. And so these are regular researchers at various institutions throughout Quebec. They're also professionals, members or representatives of community organizations. And as you can see, we have a large number of students who are involved. So our role really is to support open access platforms that will be available to Quebec and the international research communities. We also want to support the development of research by offering funds for pilot projects to members of our network, and this, as other networks have also done, is really to give them a competitive advantage in the funding applications. We also aim to promote research capacity by increasing the critical mass of Quebec-based researchers. And we support projects that are really at the interface of suicidal behaviors and mood and substance disorders. So one thing that is really unique in our network is that we've brought together researchers across various disciplines. And so we really are trying to get them to work together, or to encourage them to build projects together and to target knowledge transfer strategies. And our ultimate goal is really to engage in meaningful dialogue with decision makers. When the network was really constructed, the first thing was to decide how we're going to address the different aspects of suicide research. And there's no one accepted model for suicide risk, but most modern models do accept that there's an accumulation of risk factors, and often this starts in response to some adverse environment, which triggers a biological change, a downstream alteration in brain function, which can lead to the development of maladaptive behavioral responses, and then in turn maladaptive life trajectories, and this often will result in the development of psychopathologies that can contribute to suicide risk, so often mood and substance disorders. So we put together some strategic research groups that could address different stages of the development of suicide risk. So one group is the neurobiology group that really studies biological changes that are associated with either suicidal behaviors or mood disorders. We also have the early life adversity group that looks at behavioral changes in people who have exhibited suicidal behaviors or mood disorders. And on the other side over here, we have the psychosocial, ethical, and Aboriginal research groups that look primarily at life trajectories, although they tend to have somewhat of a more integrative approach. And downstream, we have the clinical research and innovative treatment interventions group, which is looking at people who already have a detectable mood or substance disorder. And really, they're trying to look at the best ways to intervene in these populations. So we support our research groups also through the development of research infrastructures. I'll describe them in more detail in a minute, but we have essentially the Douglas Bell Canada Suicide Brain Bank, the Analysis of Social Regulation of Suicide in Quebec platform, and the Analysis of Health Services platform. And then in addition to those three platforms, we are in the process of developing a genotyping database platform, which is based on longitudinal cohorts within Quebec. So that's in terms of the thematic organization of the network. We also have a clearly established governing structure. So at the center of that structure is, or at the top of the structure, I should say, is the combination of our executive committee and our administrative committees. So the network is led by Dr. Gustavo Turecki and co-led by Dr. Alain Lesage. And I work with them within the executive committee as the coordinator. And then in our administrative committee, we have the leaders of the different strategic groups and research platforms who receive feedback every 2 years from the International Advisory Board. And together we make decisions about which direction the network is going to take to promote research in Quebec. So here you see in the operations section, we have the 4 research groups that I've just detailed and the 3 platforms also that we support. And so together they work to produce knowledge, to produce Quebec-based knowledge in the field of suicide, mood disorders, and related disorders. And so this translational research and all this knowledge and interventions is then hopefully being fed down into knowledge transfer activities. So we work with community prevention organizations, health and social services networks, and public health instances and organizations. We also have an online platform. We have a website, which I'd invite you all to visit. And for those people who are registered as members, we add them to our mailing list and communicate information there. We also hold a Twitter page and a YouTube channel. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've invested a lot in research infrastructure. And the reason that this is something that's important to us is that we really feel it's a crucial component to a healthy research community. Often researchers are spending a lot of time trying to secure access to samples or to data, and it's an important role for our network to be able to help them in that quest and to support the development of joint resources. So we've been fulfilling a role not only within Quebec, but also within the international community. So here are the 3 resources, and so we feel that they do contribute to having a thriving research community. So the Douglas Bell Canada Brain Bank is directed by Drs. Naguib Meshawar and Gustavo Turecki. It's a brain bank that is housed at the Douglas Research Center. In total, it has over 3,000 brains, with linked donor data on demographics, clinical data, and also the developmental history of the subjects. And it's been in operation since 1980. So the réseau has really supported the expansion and the maintenance of this brain bank. And it's one of the few brain banks in the world that collects brains on neurodegenerative disorders, as well as psychiatric disorders with a P. And so we have subjects who died by suicide, or control subjects, or other subjects who died from other causes. So it's been a successful platform in that it's been able to secure external funding. So recently the Brain Bank received a $2 million grant, and they're also included in a $10 million project to renovate the Center for Translational Research on Mood Disorders and Suicide, which is where the Brain Bank is housed. Okay, so the next platform I wanted to mention is directed by Dr. Monique Séguin and Patrice Corriveau. So Monique Séguin is located at the Université du Québec en Outaouais, and Patrice Corriveau is at the University of Ottawa. And this platform really looks at documentation surrounding suicides that have occurred in Quebec since 1763. So they've covered over 30,000 suicide files, and they are really taking a very different approach, looking at the historical influences, societal influences on suicide rates. And for example, they were able to identify that, sorry, there's an overlap here, but that rapid secularization and changes to gender roles have been major contributors to increases in suicide rates. So they've also secured external funding to the height of $186,000. And our third established platform is our health services platform. So this platform is led by Dr. Marie-Josée Fleury, who's located at the Douglas, Dr. Alain Lesage, who's at the Institut Universitaire en Santé Mentale de Montréal, and Ilham Rami, who's located at McGill. And this platform is really looking at linked administrative health databases and extracting information about patients who either have died by suicide or have presented to hospitals following suicide attempts. So the platform has been working closely with the INSPQ, so the Public Health Agency of Quebec, and they were able to identify 15 key health indicators, and they've established international webinar series with researchers in Wales and Norway. Okay, so the fourth platform that is sort of in progress is a genotyping database, and it's based on 2 longitudinal cohorts that are based in Quebec. So it's the Étude longitudinale des enfants du Québec, l'ELDEC, and the Étude des jumeaux nouveau-nés du Québec, so EGNQ. And so these are looking at children who have been followed for, I believe it's almost 30 years now, over 20 years. And so they've had samples from the children and sometimes from the parents. So it's for the twins here, they have the parents as well. And genotyping has been carried out on all these samples using a psycharray platform and compiled for use by researchers. So this has a potential to grow in that other researchers who are interested can also pool their data if it's been genotyped on the same platform. And so this is really something that's being put into place. So those are the research infrastructures that we currently have. And then another aspect of our network is that we've funded a number of pilot projects over the years. And so this has been a key mechanism for supporting researchers in that we're able to help them get projects off the ground so that they can apply for grants from other agencies. And so this has been a pretty successful approach for us. And so the pilot projects are generally managed by our individual strategic research groups. So the first group is the Early Life Adversity group, and this is led by Dr. Michel Boivin, who's based in Quebec, and Jean-Philippe Gouin at Concordia. And so they initially were very interested in looking at methylation changes as a result of early life adversity, and then in the end they actually decided to invest most of their funds into the genotyping platform that I just mentioned. The Psychosocial, Ethical, and Aboriginal Health Research Group was led by Monique Séguin and Lawrence Kiermaier, who's from the Douglas, and Eric Racine, who's also, he's at McGill, at the Jewish General, and Eric Racine, who's also at McGill. And they've supported projects looking at Inuit health, Inuit suicide and life trajectories, some of the factors contributing to suicide attempts in Indigenous communities, and also looking at ethical aspects of suicide research. And then in terms of our clinical group, we've had projects supported looking at suicide risk in teens. We had a lot of work done by Dr. Jutras-Webb on the standard cohort and relationship between drug use and suicidal behaviors. And so in adults and in youth as well. And there's one more. And so in the neurobiology group, Drs. Gabriella Gobi from McGill and Linda Bui from the UDM have looked at DNA methylation in depression and epigenetic modulators of treatment-resistant depression. And more recently, they've also started looking very closely at the effects of cannabis on depression in adolescents and then endocannabinoids. So as you can see, there are a number of projects here that have definite overlap with some of the interests of PRISM. So in addition to our strategic groups, we've had a couple projects funded in other fields, so looking at nursing and nursing approaches in suicidal patients, anthropological aspects of suicide research, and also educational programs and health survey for Indigenous people. So this slide I neglected to translate, but was based on the training of future researchers. So this has been something that was very important to our network for a number of years, is that we've invested heavily in supporting students, supporting new researchers in the field. And so we've done this through a partnership with FRQS. And as a result of both that partnership where we directly funded scholarships and also through the work we've done with our different strategic groups and platforms, we've helped over 80 students to conduct their research projects and develop their expertise. So knowledge transfer activities, as I mentioned, this is really a big goal for our network, as we really want our research to be become more accessible and to be used concretely. So in the past, we've supported a number of conferences, so both international conferences like the World Suicide Conference and also local conferences like the Neuroethics Conference for Young Researchers in Montreal. We also support neuroscience seminars. We've participated in workshops with federal government agencies to try to help with policy decisions. We last year produced a video with FRQS and Canal Savoir to showcase some of the work done by some of our researchers. And we've also worked at discussing or presenting the topic to the public with public events such as a screening of a film showcasing suicide and bereavement, and a discussion panel with a number of community organizations to bring this topic really out into public and have people to share their experiences on this. We've also put a lot of effort into including people with lived experience in both the network and in our administrative committee. And we've worked with the CUs, so the Quebec Health Networks, to provide evidence to support the development of suicide risk evaluation tools to be used in clinic. And then last but not least, this year we also organized a symposium in the ACFAS conference that was really focused on use of data from linked administrative health databases. So some of the ongoing activities that we are engaging in are further conferences that we'd like to organize. We're supporting publication of some of the results from other projects. We're also supporting clinical projects on patients and the self-management of depression. We've participated also in the creation of a multidisciplinary working group to investigate ethical aspects of suicide research. And we've had continued close work with the Public Health Agency of Canada, the Institut National de Santé Publique du Québec, and also by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. So what I'm trying to say with all of this is that we really feel that we're stronger together. We've benefited from collaborations in the past. I've added a couple logos here of different organizations that we've partnered with for various projects. This is really something that is important to us because it's allowed us to expand our reach. So since expanding our scope to include mood disorders and substance disorders, we've really increased our membership. We've been able to support a large number of students, and we've gained external funding. And so this is something that we're perpetually looking forward to. We'd like to continue moving forward with new avenues of research. So if any of you are interested in pursuing work looking at suicide outcomes, I'd invite you to get in touch. So this is our network's website, and this is an email address where you can reach me at any time. So if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to take them.